Welcome to this Hannity History Special that is unmasking the Flynn case. Now, tonight, we're going to review the years-long persecution of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Now, while the media mob was busy obsessing about Russia, Ukraine, impeachment, well, we took a different course on this program, and our ensemble cast, we were determined to uncover the real government abuse of power and corruption. We got it right, they got it wrong. Now, we start 3 years ago in 2017 when we first sounded the alarm about unmasking, leaking raw intelligence and surveillance. Take a look.
General Flynn is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media, as I call it, the fake media in many cases. And I think it's really a sad thing that he was treated so badly. I think in addition to that, from intelligence, papers are being leaked, things are being leaked. It's criminal action, criminal act, and it's been going on for a long time before me, but now it's really going on. And people are trying to cover up for a terrible loss that the Democrats had under Hillary Clinton. I think it's very, very unfair what's happened to General Flynn, the way he was treated, and the documents and papers that were illegally, I stress that, illegally leaked. Very, very unfair.
All right, that was President Trump earlier today at the White House talking about Mike Flynn's resignation and the leaks coming from intelligence agencies. Now, prior to the press conference earlier this morning, Trump tweeted, quote, "The real scandal here is the classified information is illegally given out by intelligence, like candy, very un-American." Joining us now with reaction, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Congressman Devin Nunes is with us. Congressman, good to see you again. Isn't it a crime, in fact, to leak this information? Isn't it a violation of the Espionage Act, among other things?
Well, there could have been multiple crimes here committed, Sean, but for sure, leaking of classified information is punishable by law. And this needs to be looked into by the appropriate agencies. And in fact, our committee is going to be requesting that the agencies actually look into this and try to bring these perpetrators accountable and hold them accountable under the law.
Okay, I want to go back, and this was a little notice piece in the New York Times in the waning days of the administration, and it actually said the Obama administration expanded the power of the National Security Agency to share globally intercepted personnel communications with the government's 16 other intelligence agencies before applying privacy protections. Does that mean the list of potential leakers is that much bigger or not?
Well, if that's the case, we were never notified of that at the House Intelligence Committee. What I will say, Sean, is that it's not just about what leaked, the transcripts that leaked on General Flynn. It's also about the transcripts that Donald Trump talking to the Mexican president, talking to the Australian prime minister, those also leaked. So this is a state here that's falling apart. And it's totally unacceptable for anyone within government to be doing this. Now, I think most of this is probably from people who were in the old administration, but there still could be some people that have burrowed in and are providing classified information to the media, which is totally unacceptable.
It's clearly a violation of law, is it not, Congressman? And isn't this the type of thing where if you have rogue intelligence people, and they're illegally intercepting phone calls of Americans, that's illegal. And this, in other words, if in fact they wanted to get the intel or for example, hack into the phone of in this particular case, General Flynn, wouldn't they have to get a court subpoena to do so?
That's correct, and I am not aware that they did that. So my guess is that the intelligence agencies did not do this. What I'm assuming is that this was picked up as they were tracking someone else. And if that's the case, that would have had to go up to the highest levels of the Obama administration to get approval to unmask who that person is. And in this case, it was General Flynn. And then, if you really look at these leaks, Sean, it looks like these original leaks that were leaked to the media happened in the beginning of January.
Yeah,
and so that would mean it would.
Would you
that would
recommend
mean it would have to come from the administration.
Would you recommend the Attorney General convene a grand jury to get to the bottom of this?
Well, look, I think the first thing that has to happen is the FBI needs to do a full investigation of this and try to track down these leakers.
Former CIA director under President Obama, John Brennan, he testified on Capitol Hill earlier today as part of the investigation into whether Russia interfered in our 2016 presidential election. Now, this comes as a new explosive report by Circa News' John Solomon and Sarah Carter details how an Obama intelligence agency violated Americans' privacy for years and then secretly disclosed this at a closed-door hearing just days before President Donald Trump was elected. And today, during his congressional testimony, well, Brennan had this to say about whether or not he personally requested to have Americans' names unmasked. Watch this.
We're talking about prohibitions that you place on yourself with respect to identifying U.S. persons as part of our surveillance programs, right?
That's correct.
All right.
Yes.
And you just cited some of the very important reasons that we do that. And I would assume that there is a process, a protocol under which the intelligence community goes through if they seek to unmask a U.S. person's name.
That's correct.
Have you ever requested that a U.S. person's name be unmasked?
Yes, I have.
Joining us now with the breaking report from Circa News, Sarah Carter and John Solomon. Sarah, let's start with you. Tell us about this breaking news report, and a lot more to come tomorrow, as I understand it.
Yes, Sean. What we know is this, and we just broke this story yesterday, was that the CIA is the largest consumer of unmasking Americans of any agency that we know right now. What we can't give you exact numbers because those are classified, but we know that the majority of unmasking of Americans occurred with the CIA. What's even more interesting about that is that, you know, under the CIA's own purview, I mean, since 1947, their charter is not to spy on Americans. So the question is, why are they doing this? What are they looking at? And for what purposes? What John and I are also breaking is the fact that we know that the NSA under Obama violated the privacy protections when they were searching, actually, the databases at the NSA. So nobody knew this until we were able to get our hands on these documents, John and I, and these are from the FISA courts. And what happened was Obama last fall, his administration actually admitted to the courts that they had been in violation of these rules, and they were actually chastised by the courts. I mean, severely chastised, saying that they were, you know, violating the Fourth Amendment rights of Americans. And I think these are two very serious issues.
All right. I want you to juxtapose this, John, if you may, if you can, for our audience. The increase in surveillance that you saw in this election cycle. Remember, I first interviewed at CPAC. This was March of 2015, this presidential election cycle, recent one started. And what you saw in terms of surveillance, unmasking, the percentage of increase, I think I got it wrong in a recent report. I thought I was quoting you at 600, but over 350%.
Right.
And connected to what Sarah just explained to our audience.
Yeah, you know, you said a couple weeks ago, Sean, that it felt like we were peeling back an onion, and that's exactly what we've done. So we started by saying Obama loosened the rules to allow the espionage community to look more at Americans' data. Then we reported that they look at Donald Trump's associates and unmasked them in intelligence report. Then we reported that they unmasked members of Congress. Then we reported that the number of unmaskings tripled, 300% increase under Barack Obama after he changed the rules. And tonight, for the first time, we can say confidently that there's been a finding that some of that espionage, that spying on Americans, actually violated the law. The court actually concluded that it violated the Fourth Amendment protection against illegal search and seizure. So we've gone from something that at the beginning, when Susan Rice first defended herself, that all this is illegal and governed by very tight rules, to now, yes, we violated those rules, and they disclosed that just days before Trump was elected president. There's a reason to go to the court that late in election season. We'll have to find out why they did it then.
I want to ask you both this because this is so important. So you see a dramatic increase in surveillance, unmasking. We know that intelligence leaking has occurred. And we have John Brennan today admitting that unmasking occurred.
Yeah.
So I guess what the American people really need to know, and Sarah, I'll throw this to you, we really need to know if this government, under the guise of using national security, used the weaponry of our intelligence agencies to spy, unmask, political opponents in an election cycle, political opposition in an election cycle? And how deep does it go? And in other words, and how high up does it go? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, Sean. And I think there's enough evidence that we've been able to present through our numerous stories and our investigation to suggest that somebody needs to look into this. Now, remember, all of these documents are highly classified. So if anybody was to leak to us, let's say, a report that was collected, like a tech cut or a FISA report that they had access to, that they actually saw, we don't know what they were looking at. We don't know exactly what we have our suspicions. And based on what people have said, that these reports basically had nothing to do with Russia or Russian collusion, but appeared to be very strange on their face. Reports, we know that some of them were regarding the president and other people in his campaign. And so if you're looking at that on its face, there's enough suspicion to believe that there is a possibility that this could have been used as political espionage, weaponization of intelligence.
And coming up, we will review all the gross misconduct in the case against General Flynn as Comey, McCabe, Strzok, and others. They laid a perjury trap, an ambush. They also bragged about it. Don't go away as this... Welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. On January the 20th, 2017, in an email to herself on the way out the door, we now know Susan Rice claimed James Comey was handling all the investigations by the book because Barack Obama said to do everything by the book. Of course, we all know that nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, a few months later, in March of 2017, it was already clear to all of us that Flynn was set up. The media got it wrong. We got it right. U.S. intelligence agencies, they do routinely monitor foreign officials. That's their job. But protections, known as minimization procedures, have been put in place to ensure that American citizens are not caught up in that surveillance. In other words, they then would have no constitutional rights, and that their identities and their rights are protected. Now, this, of course, was not the case with Lieutenant General Flynn, because a transcript of the call was created, given to intelligence officials, who then leaked the details to the press, which, by the way, is a felony according to the Espionage Act. Now, the evidence has been laid bare for all to see. Nothing, absolutely nothing was done by the book. We were right back in March of 2017 and beyond. Take a look. It is the moment we have now been anticipating for a long time on this show. Equal justice, equal application of our laws. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, he was a war hero. He served this country honorably and with distinction. With multiple tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan, he put himself in harm's way for our freedom and our way of life. 33 years of total service. He was unfairly and justly targeted by deep state bureaucrats that clearly, with all the evidence now to prove it, wanted to take him down. We have newly unsealed documents that prove that corrupt agents from Jim Comey's FBI were discussing strategies on how to set General Flynn up on what we call a perjury trap. And according to one handwritten note, an unnamed agent asked, well, what is our goal here? Is it truth, admission, or to get him to lie? To get him to lie. Is that our goal? So we can prosecute him or get him fired. Is that the FBI's role? And get this, in an email, Peter Strzok and his FBI lover, Lisa Page, they discussed how to casually slip in an admonition about lying under oath in order to set a stronger perjury trap. These agents were preparing for an interview that ultimately did take place on January the 24th, 2017, day 4 of the Trump administration. Truth be told, it was an ambush. It was a legal abuse of power, corrupt ambush. Now, remember, during a phone call, it was Deputy FBI Director McCabe. He recommended that Flynn, oh, you don't need to have an attorney present during the interview. That would have been a Miranda rights violation. 4 days after President Trump's inauguration, Peter Strzok, one other agent, they visited the White House, and they were there to interrogate Flynn. They were sent in by Jim Comey himself. James Comey bragging, remember, he sent the agents to grill Flynn just 4 days into the administration. He wanted to exploit the chaos inside the transitioning White House, something he would never do in the Bush or Obama administrations or get away with. Ultimately, that perjury trap was not a success. Agents saw no indication at all that the National Security Advisor was lying. They didn't believe he was lying. They said they didn't believe he was lying. Comey's FBI turned the screws anyway. They threatened to lock Flynn up for years. He eventually went bankrupt. He had to sell his home. They threatened to prosecute his son. They ultimately forced him to plead guilty, get this guilty plea, making him a felon for the rest of his life, or they were going to prosecute his son. They didn't think he lied, but then they forced him to lie, coerced him into making statements. Why? To protect his son. Now, frankly, what great father wouldn't do that? Well, either you sign this or we're going to put your son away for the rest of his life. Where do I sign? Flynn was set up. It was a perjury trap all along. Now, Comey's FBI knew the Russia collusion narrative. They knew it was a hoax, and we have new information regarding that. They were hell-bent on punishing anyone and everyone inside the Trump administration. By the way, Mr. Comey, I've been warning you. You have the right to remain silent. I've suggested you use it. You've not listened to me. Jim, tick-tock. Now, keep in mind, we've been right every step of the way. The media mob, what have they been doing? They have lied. They have advanced hoax after hoax, conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory, state-run so-called news channels. Oh, and the socialist paper, Pravda, of record in the United States. The New York toilet paper Times. Take a look. This is week one of the Trump presidency. Isn't the name of Jim Comey's book A Higher Loyalty? Wouldn't that be to the United States Constitution, the rule of law, equal justice under the law? Does that sound like a virtuous public servant to you, or someone trying to trap Lieutenant General Flynn from day one? Page after page after page of evidence, corrupt agents like McCabe and Strzok and Comey and others were conspiring to set Lieutenant General Flynn up and ruin his life. And by the way, this is Exhibit A of a corrupt bureaucracy that is a threat to everything we hold dear. Our republic is now, and I'm not overstating this, we are facing a clear and present danger. America's at a tipping point. We have a very important election in 188 days. Now, to the credit of the Attorney General of the United States, Bill Barr. The Attorney General has been leaving these little crumbs here, there, and everywhere. And if you listen to what he's saying, oh, the president was spied on. Candidate was spied on. He's made other statements like, yeah, no, this is not about writing a paper, meaning the Durham investigation. This is about justice. This, my sources tell me tonight, is all happening because the Attorney General believes in the rule of law. By the way, I have an FBI pin here, and I have a CIA pin here. Why? For the 99% that do a great job and protect us every day. We must restore confidence in our premier law enforcement agency, the premier agency in the world, the premier intelligence agency in the world, for the sake of our Constitution. For the sake of the 99% of people who bravely serve these institutions and protect us. And thanks to the president and his Attorney General, Bill Barr, this deep state reckoning is going on right before our eyes. It's sad to see, but at least people believe in the law. This is not how we should be treating a 33-year devoted veteran who loves his country and his son. This is not the last shoe to drop. Now, right after the break, we'll take you back to the day that the DOJ announced it was dropping all charges against General Flynn, and later, my message for Judge Emmett Sullivan. That's straight ahead. Now, after a mountain of newly uncovered evidence showed that General Flynn did nothing wrong, the DOJ agreed to drop its case. Flynn was vindicated, but his fight against the deep state, sadly, continues to this day. Watch this. Breaking tonight, the Department of Justice and Attorney General Barr rightly have dropped all charges against Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. And that means soon his nearly 4-year nightmare and ordeal will be over and only if the presiding federal judge, Emmett Sullivan, agrees with the DOJ's motion. Flynn was, we've told you for years, and is an innocent man. He's an honorable man, a 33-year veteran who served his country with distinction. But because of his support for President Trump, he, like the president, many other people around the president, they were subjected to years of total hell by a corrupt group of dirty cops, to quote Joe DeGeneva. First time he said it on this show, I flinched. They're dirty cops. All my family was in law enforcement. That's not how we believe cops act or FBI acts. And you know what? It was only 1%, not the rank and file. What happened to General Flynn is just the tip of the iceberg. First, we got to address what is the foundation of this great republic. What is it? Our Constitution, liberty, justice, equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws. People that abuse power, people that are corrupt, the powerful tools of intelligence misused, people with agendas. In this case, what was an attempt at stopping Donald Trump from being president and then undoing an election. In other words, they didn't like the choice of you, we, the people. So they did everything in their power, a lot of corrupt things and illegal things, to take Donald Trump down. They've tried ever since he was elected and even before he was elected. Shortly after the DOJ's announcement, Lieutenant General Flynn, he tweeted out this video of his grandson. It reminds us that there are good people and that there is hope, and that sometimes with good people in power, justice can and will prevail. Take a look.
I allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, of liberty and justice for all.
All right. Maybe he could teach Joe Biden how to say things. I don't know. But he got it right. Good job. Looks like General Flynn's grandson understands the core American principle better than some of these corrupt bad actors who tried to persecute his grandfather. Let's take a look at how we got here. Let's start in early January 2017. Before President Trump was even sworn into office, the FBI determined Flynn had done nothing wrong. Nothing. In fact, Comey's Crossfire Hurricane investigation found no evidence of collusion from anyone associated with Donald Trump. Thanks to a recent document discovery, we learned that by January of 2017, there was no derogatory material on Flynn in the FBI's files. Zero in the Defense Intel Agency files. Zero derogatory material as it relates to material in the CIA files. And we know that by January 4th, 2017, the case against Flynn was supposed to be closed. That is, until the FBI leadership on the infamous 7th floor got involved. That same day, Peter Strzok pleaded, don't close out the case. And in comes Jim Comey. A few weeks later, fourth day into the Trump administration, Strzok is asking, quote, what is our goal? Truth, admission, or to get General Flynn to lie so that then we can prosecute him and get him fired or get him fired. Those words should never come out of anybody in the FBI, ever. The goal should be justice and truth always. That's not a question that he should have ever asked. The fact that he asked it and got answers is scary. That quote, quite literally, is the definition of a perjury trap. But in Jim Comey's FBI, well, it was all means to an end. January 24th, Mr. Higher Loyalty, super patriot himself, Jim Comey, he directed his agents to ambush General Flynn at the White House, and as he bragged about, to take advantage of the chaos in the White House, something he wouldn't do in the Obama-Bush administrations or get away with, and push aside all due process, which would be going through the White House General Counsel. In other words, Comey's disreputable right-hand man, Deputy Director McCabe, well, he just told Flynn, oh, you don't need a lawyer. That was a lie, too. It was all a setup. And Comey sent them in. And like the idiotic, pompous jackass that Jim Comey bragged about, well, he bragged about the whole dirty trick on camera. Now, think about this. Does this sound like a guy that has a higher loyalty to truth, honor, law enforcement, the Constitution of the United States? Because to me, he's the dirty cop that Joe DeGeneva warned us about.
You look at this White House now, and it's hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration, in the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over.
Yeah, you think that's funny, Jim? Really? This is a 33-year veteran of this country, Jim Comey. Really? You don't need a lawyer? You're sending him in. You're setting him up. You're doing things you wouldn't do to anybody else? Wow. Jim Comey was using the Logan Act, 1799 law that nobody's ever been prosecuted under, ever, to squeeze Lieutenant General Flynn. Nobody ever found guilty of violating that obscure law since 1799. And get this, the agents that conducted the ambush, they didn't think that Flynn was lying. We don't have the original 302 notes that Strzok and Page are talking about seemingly altering later on. Because in search of a crime, you got people like Strzok and Page doing the bidding of Comey and McCabe. They made significant revisions to the initial 302. In other words, they changed the interview notes. They set them up again. And by the way, they invented the perjury trap. That's by saying you don't need a lawyer. Well, what's our goal here? Do we want him to lie? We want to set him up for perjury so he gets prosecuted? And all the while, Comey, McCabe, Rod Rosenstein, and others, they themselves premeditated fraud on the FISA court. Heard that a lot from me over the last 3 years. Despite knowing full well that Hillary's bought and paid for dossier, even the New York Toilet Paper Times figured out was likely Russian disinformation from the beginning. Yeah, she paid for Russian interference, and they used it as the basis, the bulk of information on the FISA warrant applications. Oh, by the way, we learned an awful lot in these papers today about that. We'll get to that. And by the way, that was to take away Carter Page's civil liberties and constitutional rights. And in June of 2017, well into the Trump administration, McCabe, Rosenstein, they signed off on the fourth FISA renewal. The only problem is they knew months earlier that it was useless. They had debunked it. They knew it wasn't true. They knew the subsource, after 3 interviews, had said, nah, Steele, that's not accurate. August 2nd, 2017, you have acting AG Rod Rosenstein providing Robert Mueller with a letter detailing the scope of the investigation. Now, that scope consisted of a few dozen baseless charges and a few allegations totally unrelated to collusion. The accusations against General Flynn had previously been debunked by the FBI in early January. Premeditated fraud on a FISA court. They were warned before the October 2016 FISA application. We have in these papers Andrew McCabe admitting, I don't know. He actually said, I don't know if any of it's true. And then he also said, without it, they never would have gotten the FISA application approved. That was what, in part, guys like Adam Schiff have been hiding from we, the people, all this time that we found out today. The Mueller probe was always a political witch hunt. It was a hoax. It was a conspiracy against Donald Trump. This was an attempted coup to undo a duly elected president and take him down and lie about it the whole way. That's why they turned the screws on Flynn. I'm looking at the tweets by idiots like Schiff and Nadler today. Well, he lied. He lied. Well, the FBI didn't think he was lying. But when they finally threatened to put his son in jail after he was bankrupt and after he had to sell his house and he had no more money left at that point to pay the legal fees, and they said they're going to lock up the guy's son, where do I sign? Like the great soldier he was, he dove on the sword to protect his family. That's not lying. That's prosecutorial misconduct. That is abuse of power. That is corruption at the highest levels. Today, the president referred to it as treason. Take a look.
He was targeted by the Obama administration, and he was targeted in order to try and take down a president. And what they've done is a disgrace. I hope a lot of people are going to pay a big price because they're dishonest, crooked people. They're scum, and I say it a lot. They're scum. They're human scum. This should never have happened in this country. The Obama administration, Justice Department, was a disgrace, and they got caught. They got caught. Very dishonest people, but much more than dishonest. It's treason. It's treason.
What they did to General Flynn, Papadopoulos, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, it was all a means to an end based on phony, bought and paid for Russian lies, and they knew they were Russian lies. Well, they didn't care that they ruined a 33-year veteran's life or his family's life. These bad actors, they wanted to undo your election. Your meaning we, the American people, at all costs. Naturally, the mob and the media, they were cheering it on wrongly every step of the way. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Let's take a look.
Did Flynn go rogue, by the way, when he spoke to Russia? Well,
that would be a bigger scandal than almost anything we've ever seen in any other presidential administration.
Oh, breaking news. ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians. Yeah!
Next, we're going to get back to Michael Flynn's guilty plea today and how it's made this an historic day here in D.C.
The fact is, Michael Flynn betrayed his country.
Michael Flynn betrayed the nation.
Michael Flynn did nothing wrong. Where are the apologies? Where does he go to get his good name back? Where does he go to get his house back? How does he get his family? How does he get 4 years of his life back? Because those idiots in the media mob, they've been lying, smearing, slandering, besmirching, character assassinating everybody and anybody just in their psychotic rage against Donald Trump. Like they're doing right now, like they do every day. Washington Compost, New York Toilet Paper Times, Fake News CNN, Conspiracy TV, MSDNC. They carried the water for all of the lies, conspiracy theories, every hoax, every bad actor. They published every deceptive lie and leak, and they lied to, purposely misled the American people every second, every minute, every hour of every day to bludgeon the president we, the people, elected. Not only is it a disservice to the country, they too must be held accountable. This is dangerous what they have done here. They got awfully close to succeeding on a mountain of lies that they perpetrated because they're too lazy and they're too corrupt to search for real truth. All of those so-called news outlets missed the biggest abuse of power, corruption story they'd ever have in their lifetime. And they peddled conspiracy theories in the end. We on this program, we were searching for truth and justice. We went our own path with our ensemble team. And after a long wait, finally, this is the beginning. Justice is coming. Senator Chuck Grassley said that the Durham investigation into the investigators will likely result in prosecutions. Jim Comey, tick-tock. Hope you're worried tonight. Your corruption has been laid bare for all to see. I will say that our friend Joe DeGenever, who made me flinch on this program, because my family had a lot of police officers. My mom was a prison guard. My dad was a probation officer. I had cousins that were cops. There were two guys in my family that were deity. They made it to the FBI. There was a reverence for them, unlike any other family member. Anyway, tonight, Comey apparently sees himself as a kind of an American hero because he's so delusional on Twitter. He's complaining about the DOJ seeking the truth and dropping its case against Flynn. The DOJ has lost its way, but career people, please stay. America needs you. The country is hungry for honest, competent leadership. He's probably asking his fellow deep staters to stick around. Hopefully he can make a return. I don't think anyone on earth will be taking any advice from the disgraced, fired FBI director. And soon, if there's justice, equal application, well, Jim, I warned you a long time ago. You have the right to remain silent, and I suggest you use it. Up next, our coverage of the clearly biased judge presiding in the case against Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Stay with us as the special history edition of Hannity continues.
Hi. Can you tell me how to get to I-70, please? Okay, are you... yes. Thank you.
Switch to Progressive and you can save hundreds. You know, like the sign says.
Quality quality hand sanitizers have become impossible to find. The good news is that Dr. Bright's Protect hand sanitizer is in stock and ready to ship. Protect hand sanitizer is made in the USA, registered with the FDA, and contains the CDC recommended level of alcohol by volume to fight infection. And with every bottle sold, Dr. Bright is donating a bottle to frontline heroes. Protect is available while supplies last, but it's going fast. So protect yourself now at drbright.com. That's drbrite.com.
WeatherTech has been supporting the American economy and American jobs for decades. Our innovative products offer the ultimate protection for your vehicle. One of our newest is the WeatherTech Cup Phone. It fits virtually any size cup holder and keeps your phone secure and by your side even while charging. And the desk phone is perfect for hands-free viewing in the home. Order the American-made Cup Phone or desk phone at WeatherTech.com.
Give yourself a moment to get comfortable and cozy as we get ready to begin tonight's story, as inspired by the Gospels. Take a deep breath, in and out.
Pray.com's bedtime Bible stories calm your mind and ease your spirit. Download Pray.com to get the #1 app for prayer and sleep.
Today, when you bank, shop, or browse online, you're more exposed than ever to cyber criminals. That's why Norton and LifeLock are now one. Get all-in-one protection on Norton.com.
We want to help make right now sound a little bit better. So we're opening up SiriusXM for you. Stream now for free until May 31st. Go to SiriusXM.com/streamFoxNews to start listening.
Duck, duck, fox. Calling all ducks. The rock.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Sling wants to help provide a distraction during this difficult time, so we've worked with these programmers to bring you extra content for free. You now have access to these channels in your guide, so stay in and Sling.
My graduation was something I will never forget. People like you and me sometimes may have doubts in ourselves, but I feel that everything's possible.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music.
Yeah.
Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans, because love has no labels.
For a home cook like me, but fit for a linea like him.
Live from America's News Headquarters, I'm Trace Gallagher. The federal government is entering a cooperative agreement with industry for personal protective equipment. U.S. officials are invoking a rarely used section of the Defense Production Act. The provision allows the sharing of competitive information without violating antitrust regulations. The Federal Emergency Management Agency talked about the agreement today with private sector representatives. While the number of Americans applying for unemployment benefits has risen to nearly 39 million. That's almost 2.5 million applications here filed last week alone. That's 10 times the number before the coronavirus pandemic. Although weekly applications have been slowing for 7 straight weeks, still, when you look at numbers combined, the job market collapse remains unprecedented in its speed. If news breaks out, we'll break in. I'm Trace Gallagher in Los Angeles. Now back to Sean Hannity.
All right, welcome back to the special edition of Hannity. The DOJ has now agreed to drop its case against Lieutenant General Flynn, but the very same judge who once accused General Flynn of treason, Judge Emmett Sullivan, is now clearly looking for ways to keep Flynn's persecution alive. A sad travesty of justice. Take a look. In the case of General Flynn, a federal judge is now taking a clearly political stand. Instead of signing off on the DOJ's request to drop all charges, now we have Judge Emmett Sullivan has appointed a retired judge to argue against the government's motions. Both sides want it dismissed based on all this new evidence. Not Judge Sullivan. No doubt Sullivan, we've seen his bias. Keep in mind, he once insinuated that a war hero, 33-year veteran, General Flynn, was guilty of treason in an open courtroom. He accused Flynn of betraying his country. A disgusting, unforgivable comment by Judge Sullivan. And by the way, Mr. Sullivan, what part of General Flynn being ambushed and set up by McCabe and Comey don't you understand? What part of prosecutors threatening his son, if you don't do what they want, what part of that don't you get? What part of legal bills forcing Flynn to go bankrupt do you not understand in selling a home? The DOJ wants all charges dropped with all the new evidence we've been exposing on this show now for 2 weeks. Now, both sides want to rightly end the case. Judge Sullivan, you also said there was no Brady material withheld. You were wrong again, Judge. You botched this from day one, and you had a bias from day one. You reek of ignorance. You reek of political bias. So, Judge Sullivan, you and you alone, from this day forward, are responsible for continuing what has been a travesty of justice that destroyed 4 years of an American hero's life. And it's time for a new venue and a new judge, and someone, unlike you, that doesn't have political bias. Here now, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. Sarah, March 2017, I said to you, I said to John Solomon, don't stop, keep on peeling the onions. There's a lot more to this. We've learned an awful lot since then.
We have, Sean, and we've also learned how expansive it was and how frightening. And I think that you were so right in your opening monologue to point out how this has just trampled the Fourth Amendment of our Constitution, unreasonable search and seizure. You have to ask yourself this one question. When you look at the list of Obama officials beyond John Brennan, beyond James Clapper, for example, Mike Neufeld with the U.S. Treasury, he was working intelligence on Iran. So when he asked for unmasking on Michael Flynn, you have to ask yourself, okay, what was he looking for? What was he trying to find? When you think of Samantha Power, when you think of the leak to the Washington Post and the fact that they had told David Ignatius about this, they were looking at a Logan Act violation and then went sideways from that and revealed the highly classified conversation, which was very legitimate, which he was allowed to have, Michael Flynn, with former Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. You have to ask yourself, how long have the Obama officials been doing this? And that needs to be the biggest part of the concern for John Durham. And that's exactly what he's going to be looking at. How extensive were these unmaskings? We only know this by sheer accident and by sheer coincidence that we were able to find this out. Had President Trump not won the election, we would never be the wiser. And this is how that administration and those people within that administration would have operated. I'm sure there's a lot more people that were unmasked other than General Michael Flynn.
Oh, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Greg Jerry, you have 2 best-selling books on this. Let's talk about the legality in play here and the judge.
Judge Emmett Sullivan, as I wrote in a column today, he is either taken leave of his senses or he is exhibiting outrageous political bias. I think it's a bit of both. We learned late last week through suddenly released documents that Flynn was the victim of false accusations and a wrongful prosecution by unprincipled, overzealous prosecutors from Bob Mueller's office. And, you know, the Department of Justice finally came to their senses and said, wait a minute, This case should never have been prosecuted. It was fraudulent to begin with. We're going to drop the charges. Sullivan doesn't want to do that. He has invited people with an agenda, former Watergate prosecutors, to come into the courtroom and tell him what to think and how to rule, which is ridiculous. And now he's appointed a retired judge to come in there and invent a new crime with which to charge Michael Flynn, perjury, for trying to withdraw his guilty plea. This is a clown show. Sullivan is the head clown. He should recuse himself, and frankly, he has no business being on a federal bench.
We'll continue to follow it. There's a lot of legal issues. Great work, both of you. Maybe the New York Times and Washington Post should give both of you the Pulitzers, considering you guys were right, not them. They were wrong. They got Pulitzers for a hoax. And more of this special edition of Hannity right after this break.